sold our family home in Claremont, San Diego for $2.4 million. The same house I had put $250,000 into 12 years earlier, and they handed every dollar of it to my sister. When I asked about my share, my mother didn't hesitate. Be happy for your sister's fresh start. Just like that, $250,000, my entire inheritance from my grandmother, erased with a sentence. But here's what they didn't expect. I kept the paperwork. A signed agreement from 2012 stating that I owned 40% of the house's value whenever it sold. They always dismissed it as just something we put in writing. Family paperwork. And who sues family, right? One phone call later, the real estate agent contacted me. The sale is frozen, she said carefully. Your parents aren't taking it well. But I read every single one, and it truly means more to me than you know. Now let me take you back to where this story began. To understand why I had that contract and why my parents assumed I'd never use it, we have to go back to the summer of 2012. Back when I was 22 and still believed that family meant protection. Growing up in San Diego, I was always the responsible one. My sister, Valeria, is 4 years older than I am. She struggled through school, switched majors more times than I can count, dropped out twice, and eventually earned a communications degree she never used. She married at 24, a car sales manager named Brandon Keller, and had 2 kids soon after. Somewhere along the way, Valeria became the one who needed help. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in accounting and was hired straight out of college by Whitmore and Lane Financial Group. I paid my own bills. I never asked my parents for a dime after graduation, and somehow that made me the family ATM. The pattern was predictable. Valeria would have a crisis, car repairs, surprise expenses, marriage counseling, and my parents would call. Camilla, can you help your sister just this once? It was never just once. In 2018, I lent her $15,000 to save her marriage. Couples therapy. A romantic trip to reconnect. I never saw that money again. When I mentioned it at Thanksgiving, my mother pulled me aside. Don't be petty, Camila. Your sister is struggling. You have a good job. I once added it up. Over 10 years, I'd given my family, mostly Valeria, more than $60,000 that was never repaid. Birthday gifts that covered overdue bills. Christmas checks that went straight toward credit card debt. And that didn't include the big one, the $250,000. My mother had a favorite line whenever I hesitated. You're the one with the ability. Your sister doesn't have that. It took me until I was 30 to understand that wasn't praise, it was permission to drain me. But the real story begins with my grandmother, Isabella Cruz, and the money she left behind. She passed away in March 2012 at 87, sharp-minded until the very end. She loved me fiercely. I was the granddaughter who showed up. Every Sunday during college, I drove 40 minutes to her assisted living apartment in La Mesa. We played Scrabble, watched old black and white movies. She told me about growing up during the Depression, about her marriage, about the bakery she'd owned for 3 decades before retiring. Valeria visited maybe twice a year, Christmas, Grandma's birthday, sometimes not even that. So when the will was read, no one should have been shocked. But my mother looked like she'd been struck. To my granddaughter, Camila Morales, I leave the sum of $250,000 so that she may have a solid financial foundation for her future. That was it. Clear, specific, intentional. Valeria received Grandma's china. My mother took the antique jewelry. My father got the grandfather clock that had been in our family for generations. But the liquid, life-changing money, that went to me. My mother was furious, not at my grandmother, at me. You must have influenced her, she hissed at the reception. She wasn't thinking clearly. She always favored Valeria. That wasn't true. Grandma loved the granddaughter who showed up. It wasn't complicated. I kept a copy of that will, I still do, in the same Bank of America safety deposit box where I store every important document. It clearly states her intention. Money for my foundation. 2 months after I received the inheritance, my mother called with what she described as a wonderful opportunity. I should have recognized the warning sign. August 2012. I was 22, fresh out of college, sitting in my parents' living room, while my mother explained how I could invest in the family's future. The pitch was simple. The house in Claremont, purchased in the mid-90s, still had about $120,000 left on the mortgage. It was worth roughly $650,000 at the time. If I contributed my $250,000 to pay off the mortgage and fund renovations, I would own 40% of the property's value when it eventually sold. Think of it as an investment, my father said. Real estate in San Diego always appreciates. You'll make money and you'll be helping us. My mother smiled and added softly, "It's what your grandmother would have wanted." I hesitated. That $250,000 was everything I had. My entire safety net. The one thing my grandmother had left me that was meant to protect me. My mother's expression shifted. "Don't you trust us, Camilla?" she asked, her tone tightening. "We're your parents." That night, I called my best friend, Naomi Bennett. We'd been close since freshman year at San Diego State, and she was the only person outside my family who knew about the inheritance. "At least get something in writing," Naomi said immediately. "Anything, a napkin, just protect yourself." So I did. When I asked my parents to formalize the agreement, they laughed. "Oh, please," my mother said, rolling her eyes. "If you want to make it official, fine." My father pulled out his laptop and typed up a simple one-page contract. It stated that I, Camila Morales, was contributing $250,000 to the family home in Claremont in exchange for 40% ownership, to be paid upon sale or transfer of the property. Both of them signed it. August 15th, 2012. I placed the original in my Bank of America safety deposit box. It cost me $75 a year, the best $75 I have ever spent. 12 years later, that single sheet of paper would change everything. The years pass the way they do when you think your life is stable. I worked my way up at Whitmore and Lane Financial Group, from junior accountant to senior financial analyst. I earned my CPA license, moved into a small apartment in North Park, opened retirement accounts, did everything by the book. Valeria's life moved in the opposite direction. She and Brandon had 2 kids. She never returned to work. "The kids need me at home," she'd say. Brandon's income covered the basics, barely, and through all of it, my parents kept calling. The roof needed repairs. Could I send $10,000? The HVAC system was failing. Another $15,000. Property taxes were tight one year. Maybe $7,500 would help. "Consider it adding to your investment," my mother would say smoothly. I kept a rough count. Over 12 years, I put another $60,000 into that house. No contracts this time, just wire transfers labeled roof repair or family help. At 34, I owned nothing but my car and my retirement accounts, and I had given my family nearly $250,000. Then in January 2024, Valeria's marriage finally collapsed. Brandon left her for someone he'd met at the dealership. The house was in his name alone. He kept it. Valeria walked away with 2 kids, a few suitcases, and nothing else. She moved back into my parents' house. And suddenly, every family conversation revolved around one question: how do we help Valeria start over? In September 2024, my mother called with news that shattered whatever illusion I still had. "We're selling the house," she announced, "and we already have a buyer." October 15th, 2024. I remember the date because I was sitting at my desk reviewing quarterly statements when her name lit up my phone. "Wonderful news," she said brightly. "We sold it. $2.4 million. Can you believe that? The San Diego market is unbelievable." I did the math instantly. 40% of $2.4 million is $960,000. My original investment. 12 years of appreciation. Finally. "That's great, Mom," I said carefully. "So when do I—" "We've decided to give it all to Valeria." I stopped breathing. She needs it more than anyone, my mother continued, as if this were obvious. She lost everything in the divorce. She needs a down payment, stability. This gives her a fresh start. Mom, I whispered, what about my share, the $250,000 I put in? There was a pause, then her voice changed. It was colder than I'd ever heard it. That was your contribution to the family, Camilla. Your investment in us. You've done well for yourself. You have a career, an apartment. Valeria has nothing. But we had an agreement, I said. Dad typed it. You both signed it. She laughed. That was just family paperwork. No one is going to hold you to that. We're family, not business partners. My hand tightened around the phone until it hurt. Be happy for your sister, she said. She's getting a second chance. That's what matters. And then she hung up. I sat at my desk for 10 full minutes without moving. The screen went dark. The office noise faded into a blur. And something inside me, something that had bent and compromised and rationalized for 34 years, finally snapped. I didn't sleep that night. I replayed every loan that was never repaid. Every holiday where Valeria's crisis became the headline. Every time I swallowed my frustration because Camilla can handle it. At 6 in the morning, I called Naomi. What time is it? She groaned. 6, I need to talk. 20 minutes later, she was fully awake and furious on my behalf. Please tell me you kept that agreement. I did, I said. Of course I did. I'm an accountant. I keep everything. Then you need a lawyer, she said. Today, not tomorrow. Today. I pulled up the email my mother had forwarded weeks earlier, back when she still pretended I'd be celebrating with them. Closing was scheduled for October 20th, 5 days away. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted. They're my family. Naomi's voice hardened. What kind of family takes $250,000 from their daughter, then pretends it never existed? What kind of family, Naomi continued, her voice rising, looks at your grandmother's inheritance, money she specifically left for you, and decides someone else deserves it more? I didn't have an answer. If a stranger did this, she said, you'd call the police. Why does your family get a pass? She was right. I had probably known she was right for years. I just hadn't wanted to say it out loud. What if I lose them? I whispered. What if this destroys everything? What exactly do you have right now? Naomi shot back. A family that treats you like an ATM isn't a family. It's a bank account with guilt attached. That afternoon, I scheduled a consultation with a real estate attorney named Daniel Whitaker. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. Daniel's office was on the 12th floor of a downtown San Diego building, all glass walls and views of the harbor. He was in his mid-40s, silver at the temples, calm in a way that suggested he'd seen every version of family betrayal imaginable. I handed him 3 documents: the 2012 agreement with my parents' signatures, the bank record showing the $250,000 wire transfer, and a copy of my grandmother Isabella Cruz's will. He read through everything. Then he read it again. Finally, he set the papers down. Ms. Morales, he said evenly, under California law, this agreement is enforceable. I exhaled so sharply I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath. The document is signed by both parties, he continued. It specifies the amount contributed, the percentage of ownership, and the condition of repayment upon sale. It's straightforward, not fancy, but legally binding. My mother said it was just family paperwork, I said quietly, that no one would take it seriously. Daniel gave the faintest smile. People say a lot of things when they're trying to avoid paying $960,000. He walked me through my options. I could send a formal demand letter, which would give my parents time to hire counsel and possibly try to stall. Or I could wait until the closing, appear with legal representation, and assert my claim in person. If there was a legitimate ownership dispute, the transaction couldn't proceed. Which would you recommend? I asked. The closing is in 3 days, Daniel replied. If you want certainty, you show up, with documentation they can't refute, in front of witnesses who are legally obligated to address ownership disputes before any sale is finalized. I heard my mother's voice in my head. Be happy for your sister. I'll be there, I said. What do I need to do? Daniel moved quickly. By the end of our October 17th meeting, he had drafted a formal notice to Pacific Horizon Realty, the firm handling the sale, informing them of a potential ownership claim. We won't name you yet, he explained. Just that a documented claim exists. That puts them on legal notice. They're required to disclose it before closing. I imagined my parents receiving that call. The confusion. The first flicker of panic. What happens when they find out it's me? I asked. They'll try to contact you, Daniel said calmly. Likely through your mother. Guilt, pressure, emotional leverage. The real question is whether you'll hold firm. I thought about 34 years of bending, of being the reliable one, of watching my grandmother's clear, written wish for my security quietly erased because my sister needed it more. I'll hold firm, I said. Daniel nodded. Good. I'll attend the closing with you on the 20th. We'll bring notarized copies of everything, the agreement, the wire records, your grandmother's will. Then he paused. There's something else. My stomach tightened. I reviewed the seller's disclosure your parents signed. They stated there were no ownership claims or disputes on the property. I stared at him. Meaning? Meaning they either forgot about your agreement, he said carefully, or they chose not to disclose it. His tone remained professional. Either way, they signed a legally binding document that wasn't accurate. That's not a small issue. Closing was in 3 days. My family had no idea I was coming. No idea I still had the contract. No idea their $2.4 million sale was about to stop in its tracks. And if I'm being honest, I was terrified. October 17th, 5:47 p.m. My phone rang. Mom. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I needed to know what they knew. Camila! Her voice was bright. Too bright. I'm so glad I caught you. We're planning a little celebration after closing. A housewarming for Valeria once she finds her new place. You'll come, won't you? A party. They were planning a party. When is it? I asked evenly. The 21st, right after the paperwork is finalized. The whole family will be there. Aunt Sophia, Uncle Mateo. Everyone's coming, my mother continued cheerfully. We're so excited for Valeria's fresh start. I closed my eyes. I'll try to make it, I said. Wonderful. And Valeria wants to thank you personally. She knows you've always been there for her. Thank me. For letting her take my inheritance. How generous. When we hung up, I sat alone in my North Park apartment and let the anger settle over me. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't loud. It was colder than that. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally see a pattern without excuses. That night, my phone buzzed. Valeria. Thanks for understanding. I know this is a lot. You've always been the strong one. I don't know what I'd do without my little sister supporting me. Love you. Did she know about the $250,000? Did she know she was celebrating with my money? I was about to find out. 3 days until closing. My parents thought this was over. They believed I'd accepted my role. The dependable daughter, the quiet one, the one who bends. They had no idea that for the first time in my life, I wasn't bending. I was done folding. October 18th, 2 days before closing. I stopped by the house under the excuse of collecting old photo albums before the new owners moved in. My mother was at a salon appointment. My father was out golfing. Only Valeria was home, watching the kids in the backyard. I was in my old bedroom gathering pictures when I heard her voice through the thin hallway walls. She was laughing. No, Camilla won't cause trouble. She's too nice. You know how she is. I froze. Mom said she put some money into the house years ago, but that was forever ago. Ancient history. And honestly, I need this more. I have 2 kids. What does Camilla even spend money on? Her apartment? Her boring finance job? My chest tightened. The $2.4 million won't stretch that far after I buy a house and clear some debt. I'll probably only have around $1 million left. But it's a start, right? She paused, listening. Camilla will understand. She always understands. That's her thing. I stood perfectly still. Mom says she contributed something back then, but whatever. It was basically a gift. Family helps family, and I need help more than she does. There it was. She knew. She knew I had contributed. She just decided it didn't count. Because I had a career. Because I had an apartment. Because I was the understanding one. I left without the photo albums. I couldn't trust myself to speak without shaking. 2 days until closing. And now I knew the truth. This wasn't just my parents' decision. Valeria was fully aware. That night, sleep didn't come again. At 1 a.m., I called Naomi. She answered on the second ring. She'd been waiting. She knew, I said, my voice breaking. Valeria knew about the money. She just decided it didn't matter. Oh, Camilla. She called it a gift, I said bitterly. Said family helps family. Like I haven't been helping this family my entire adult life. Naomi was quiet for a moment. Are you having second thoughts? I wanted to say no, but it wasn't that simple. Her kids didn't ask for this, I whispered. They're 8 and 5. What if I'm hurting them? Stop, Naomi said firmly. You're not taking anything from those kids. You're claiming what's legally yours. What your grandmother explicitly left to you. If Valeria can't build a stable life without your stolen inheritance, she continued, that's on her, not you. But everyone's going to hate me, I said. My parents, Valeria, the whole extended family. I'll be the villain. Then let them hate you, Naomi replied, with their wrong opinions, while you keep your $960,000 and your self-respect. She exhaled slowly. You've spent your whole life being the good daughter. Where has that gotten you? I didn't answer. We both knew. If you don't stand up for yourself now, she went on, who will? Your mom? She's the one trying to take your money? Your dad? He follows her lead. Valeria? She's already spending it in her head. She was right. I knew she was right. I hung up and stared at the ceiling in the dark. October 20th, 10 a.m. Pacific Horizon Realty, downtown San Diego. I would be there, with my attorney, and the document they forgot I had. October 19th, 1 day before closing. I met with Daniel Whitaker in his downtown San Diego office for a final strategy session. The conference table was covered in paperwork, the original 2012 agreement, notarized copies, bank statements, even a detailed timeline I'd prepared showing every additional contribution I'd made over 12 years. Here's how tomorrow unfolds, Daniel said, sliding a legal pad toward me. The closing is set for 10 a.m. at Pacific Horizon Realty. Your parents, your sister, the buyers, their attorney, the escrow officer, everyone will be in the room. And they don't know I'm coming, I said. They know there's an ownership dispute, he replied. They are legally required to disclose that before closing, but they do not know who filed the claim. I pictured my mother's expression when she realized. What happens when we walk in? I asked. I'll introduce myself as your counsel, Daniel said. We'll present the 2012 agreement and supporting documentation. At that point, escrow cannot proceed until the dispute is resolved. And then? He held my gaze. Then your parents have a choice. Acknowledge your 40% ownership and adjust distribution, or face a lawsuit they will lose, and that will cost them significantly more than settling. I nodded slowly. They'll try to manipulate me, I said, in front of everyone. That's why I'll do most of the speaking, Daniel replied. Your role is simple. Stay calm. Say as little as possible. Let the documents speak. That night, I laid out my clothes carefully. Navy blazer, white blouse, black slacks. I would walk into that room looking exactly like what I was, a financial professional who understood contracts. Tomorrow would change everything. October 20th, 2024. 9:45 a.m. Pacific Horizon Realty occupied the ground floor of a renovated building downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, polished concrete floors, the kind of place where deals are supposed to close smoothly. Daniel and I arrived 15 minutes early. The receptionist led us to a glass-walled conference room where we could see the main table from a slight distance. My parents arrived first. My mother wore a cream blouse and pearls, her important meeting outfit. My father looked stiff in a sport coat, tugging at his collar like he couldn't quite breathe. They were laughing with Olivia Hart, the listing agent. Valeria came next, full makeup, hair styled, a wrap dress and heels. She looked radiant, lighter than I'd seen her in months. She was already talking about paint colors for her new kitchen. Then the buyers arrived, Patrick and Helen Doyle, a couple in their 60s looking to downsize. Their attorney followed. Finally, the escrow officer entered carrying a thick folder. Everyone took their seats. Valeria positioned herself between my parents, glowing with anticipation. Then she saw me. "Camilla?" Her face shifted from surprise to confusion. "What are you doing here?" My mother's head snapped in my direction. For a split second, something flashed across her face. Not anger, fear. "I came to support the family," I said calmly. "This is my attorney, Daniel Whitaker." Daniel nodded politely. My father frowned. "Attorney? What do you need an attorney for?" Olivia Hart cleared her throat, shuffling her paperwork nervously. "Before we begin," she said, "there's a matter we need to address." The room went still. My mother's smile remained, but her eyes had hardened. "We received formal notice 2 days ago of a potential ownership dispute involving this property," Olivia continued carefully. "We are legally obligated to address any such claim before proceeding with the sale." My mother let out a sharp, brittle laugh. "Ownership dispute? That's absurd. The house belongs to Jorge and me. It's been in our names for nearly 30 years. "Mom," I said evenly, "you know exactly what this is about." Patrick Doyle shifted in his seat. "What kind of dispute are we talking about?" he asked. Olivia opened her mouth, but Daniel stood first. "I'd like to clarify the situation," he said, his tone steady and professional. "My client, Camila Morales, contributed $250,000 to this property in August 2012. In exchange, she was granted 40% ownership, payable upon any future sale." "That's ridiculous," my mother snapped. "It is not," Daniel replied calmly. He placed a document on the table. "A written agreement signed by Jorge and Adriana Morales, dated August 15, 2012. "I have the original and notarized copies available for everyone," Daniel said calmly. He slid the documents across the table. I watched my father pick one up. The color drained from his face. He remembered. Of course he remembered. He was the one who typed it. My mother's copy sat untouched in front of her, like it might disappear if she refused to look at it. "And in addition," Daniel continued, "we have bank records confirming a $250,000 wire transfer from Miss Morales to Jorge and Adriana Morales on August 18, 2012. The amount and timing match the agreement precisely." Helen Doyle turned to her husband. "Patrick, I don't think we should proceed," she murmured. "No one is signing anything until this is resolved," Olivia Hart said quickly. "We cannot close with an unresolved ownership claim." My mother finally looked at me. The chill in her eyes had deepened into something darker. The silence stretched thin, tight as a wire. Daniel remained standing. "The agreement is clear. Miss Morales is entitled to 40% of the sale price, at $2. $4 million. That equals $960,000. Valeria's mouth fell open. $960,000? She whispered. You're suing us?" "I'm not suing anyone," I said steadily. "I'm asking for what I was promised, what I'm legally owed." "This is insane," my mother snapped, her composure cracking. "That was family money. You were helping with the mortgage." "I was making an investment," I corrected. "And I have the signed agreement to prove it, with your signature, and Dad's." My father still hadn't looked up. "Adriana," he said quietly, "I remember this. I typed it." "Jorge, don't!" she hissed. "She was right to ask for it in writing," he continued, almost to himself. "I thought it was unnecessary back then, but she was right." Olivia cleared her throat. "Mr. and Mrs. Morales, this document was not disclosed in your seller's paperwork." "Because it doesn't matter," my mother shot back. "It was just something we did for Camilla's peace of mind. No one treats family agreements like business contracts." Daniel's eyebrows lifted slightly. "California courts do, Mrs. Morales. This meets every requirement of an enforceable contract. Your daughter has a legitimate ownership claim. Patrick Doyle pushed back from the table. We're not comfortable proceeding, he said. Call us when this is sorted out. Olivia nodded. We'll need to pause the closing until the dispute is resolved. Pause. Not cancel. But close enough. I watched my mother's face shift. Shock, anger, disbelief. And beneath it all, fear. You're doing this for money? She demanded, leaning forward. Your own family, the people who raised you, and you're treating us like strangers? You treated my $250,000 like it didn't exist, I replied quietly. You decided to give everything to Valeria without even telling me the house was for sale. Because you don't need it, she shot back. Look at you. You have a career, an apartment, a life. Valeria has nothing. Bye, Saiki. Valeria has two parents who have protected her from consequences for 38 years, I said evenly, even though my heart was pounding. I have a document showing I'm owed $960,000. Those are two very different kinds of having. Valeria burst into tears. How can you do this to me? She cried. To my kids? I just got divorced. I have nothing. You're sitting on almost $1 million, Daniel interjected smoothly. Even after honoring Ms. Morales' 40% share, your clients would retain approximately $1.44 million. That is not nothing by any reasonable standard. My mother rounded on him. This is a family matter. It's none of your business. It became my business when your daughter retained me to protect her legal interests, Daniel said calmly. Interests that appear to have been intentionally disregarded. Patrick Doyle stood. We're not signing today. Call us when this is resolved. He and his wife walked out without another word. Their attorney followed, pausing briefly. You should have disclosed this, she said to my parents. You may have exposure beyond just this transaction. The room began to empty. The escrow officer gathered his untouched documents. My mother turned to me, her eyes shining. Whether from genuine emotion or performance, I couldn't tell. You've ruined everything, she said. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, I replied quietly, but I'm not being erased anymore. Valeria grabbed my arm. Do you realize what you've done? My kids need that money, your niece and nephew. Don't you care about them? I gently pulled my arm free. Emma and Mateo deserve stability, I said, but it shouldn't be built on money taken from their aunt. Taken? Valeria's voice rose. Mom said you offered to help, that you wanted to contribute. I contributed $250,000 with the written promise of 40% ownership upon sale, I said. That's not charity, it's an investment, and I have the contract to prove it. You were 22, she said desperately. You probably misunderstood. I was a college graduate with an accounting degree, I replied evenly. I understood exactly what I was signing, and so did Mom and Dad. My father finally found his voice. Camila, please, can't we work something out privately, without lawyers, without strangers? I looked at him, this man who had spent my entire life deferring to my mother, who had signed the agreement and then acted as if it had never existed. You had 12 years to work something out, I said quietly. 12 years to tell me you were planning to sell. 12 years to say, Camila, let's talk about your share. You didn't. You tried to give my money to Valeria and hoped I'd be too nice to object. I stood and picked up my purse. I'm willing to negotiate, I said. I want my $960,000, and then I'm out. But I will not be guilted into giving up what's mine. Not anymore. On the way out, Daniel handed my mother his business card. She didn't take it. It fluttered onto the table like a white flag she refused to see. 1 hour after we left the building, my phone rang. Pacific Horizon Realty. Ms. Morales, this is Olivia Hart. Yes. I wanted to update you, she said, her voice tired. The sale is officially frozen until the ownership issue is resolved. The buyers are hesitant to proceed. Your parents are not handling it well. I'm not surprised. Your mother is insisting this is a misunderstanding, Olivia continued. Your father asked if there's any way to expedite resolution. There is, I said calmly. They acknowledge my 40% ownership and adjust the payout accordingly. She paused. I've been in this business 15 years, she said. I've seen family disputes over property, but I've never seen someone fail to disclose a $250,000 contribution from a family member. Do you think they forgot? I asked. Another pause. I think, she said carefully, they hoped no one would ask. 12 years of hoping I'd stay quiet. 12 years of betting on my compliance. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. Would you have signed a seller's disclosure stating there were no ownership claims? Silence. No, she answered finally. That's not an oversight. That's a choice. My parents had chosen to erase me, chosen to sign legal documents pretending I didn't exist. Now I was choosing too. My attorney will follow up tomorrow, I said. Thank you. The guilt campaign began that evening, 6:47 p.m. Mom. Her voice had transformed. No longer icy and furious, but soft, wounded, maternal. Camilla, she sighed. I can't believe it's come to this. Neither can I. I raised you better than this, she said. I taught you family comes first, that we support each other. And now you're treating us like criminals. I'm treating you like people who signed a contract and pretended it didn't exist. That contract was just a formality. We never meant. Then why did you sign it? Silence. You had a choice, I continued. When you decided to sell, you could have called me. You could have said, Camila, let's talk about honoring the agreement. Instead, you tried to give everything to Valeria and hoped I wouldn't notice. Your sister needs it more. That's not your decision to make, I said. Not with my money. Her tone hardened. If you go through with this, I'll tell everyone. The whole family will know what kind of daughter you are. Greedy, selfish. Tell them, I cut in. And I'll show them the contract with your signature dated August 15th, 2012. I'll explain that you took $250,000 from your daughter and tried to give it to another because she needed it more. For the first time in my life, my mother had no answer. I'm not the villain in this story, I said quietly. I'm the one with documentation. Your father's heart, she began. The stress could... Dad's health is Dad's responsibility, I replied. Mine is protecting myself from being erased. I ended the call before she could pivot again. My hands were shaking. But I didn't call back. Let me pause for a second. If you've ever been told you're selfish for protecting what's legally yours, if you've ever been guilted for refusing to be drained, hit that like button. That's how I know you're still here with me. And you're not alone. Now. I didn't expect Valeria to call that night. It was almost 10 p.m. when her name lit up my screen. I hesitated before answering. Camila? Valeria's voice sounded different now, tired. The theatrical tears were gone. Can we talk? Just us? We're talking. Mom's spiraling, she said. She's been on the phone with Aunt Sophia for an hour, telling everyone you ambushed us. She let out a dry laugh. I don't think Sophia's buying it. I stayed quiet. I need to ask you something, she continued. And I need you to be honest. Okay. Did you really put in $250,000, your own money, back in 2012? Something tightened in my chest. You know I did, I said. You said so yourself yesterday. I heard you on the phone. Silence. You heard that? I heard enough. She exhaled slowly. Mom told me you helped back then, she said. She never told me how much. I swear I didn't know it was $250,000, not until today. I wanted to believe her, but the words I'd heard through the wall kept replaying. Camilla will understand. She always understands. You knew there was something, I said quietly. You just didn't ask how much, because if you knew, you'd have to think about it. More silence. Maybe you're right, she admitted finally. Maybe I didn't want to know. It was easier not to. That's not my problem to solve. I know, her voice broke. I know I've always been the one everyone had to rescue. I know you've resented me. I didn't resent you, I said. I resented being invisible while you were protected. That's fair, she whispered. That's really fair. 2 days after the failed closing, October 22nd, Daniel called with an update. The buyers have issued an ultimatum, he said. Resolve the ownership dispute within 7 days, or they withdraw and demand their $120,000 earnest deposit back. If they withdraw, he continued, your parents face 2 problems. They lose a qualified buyer in a cooling market, and they may face legal exposure for misrepresentation. Misrepresentation? They signed a seller's disclosure stating there were no ownership claims. That wasn't accurate. The Doyle's attorney has already hinted at potential damages. I let that sink in. I hadn't attacked them. I hadn't filed a lawsuit. I had simply shown up with the truth. What do you think they'll do? I asked. I think they'll realize they have no leverage, Daniel replied. Every day this drags on costs them money. Meanwhile, your claim doesn't expire. That afternoon, I learned my mother had hired her own attorney, a family lawyer named Thomas Green. According to Daniel, Thomas had reviewed the documents and delivered a blunt assessment. Mrs. Morales, he reportedly said, your daughter's contract is valid. Fighting this will be expensive, drawn out, and unsuccessful. My professional advice is to negotiate. I almost laughed when Daniel told me. For 34 years, my mother controlled every narrative. This time, the facts didn't bend. The signatures were real. The wire transfer was real. And the clock was ticking. Her threat to tell everyone backfired spectacularly. By October 23rd, she had called every relative she could reach, Aunt Sophia, Uncle Mateo, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, painting me as the ungrateful daughter sabotaging a family sale over ancient history. She didn't expect me to respond. That same afternoon, I sent a group email. Subject line, clarification regarding the Morales property dispute. I attached the 2012 agreement, the bank confirmation of the $250,000 transfer. A short explanation. I contributed this amount in exchange for documented 40% ownership. Upon sale, my share was being redirected without my consent. I am requesting what was contractually promised. The replies came quickly. Aunt Sophia, my mother's own sister, called that evening. Camila, I believe you, she said warmly. Your mother tried something similar when we settled Grandma Isabella's estate. She wanted the jewelry and the money you received. I had to threaten legal action before she backed down. I hadn't known that. For years I thought I was the only one who saw clearly. Uncle Mateo called next. Your dad asked me to talk sense into you, he said. I told him I saw the documents. The only person who needs sense talked into him is himself. The narrative was shifting. My mother had counted on loyalty. She hadn't anticipated receipts. You're not alone, Aunt Sophia told me before hanging up. You never were. We just didn't know how to help. On October 24th, my father called. For the first time without my mother on the line. Camila, he said quietly. Can we talk? Just us? I was driving home through San Diego traffic. I pulled into a parking lot and turned off the engine. I'm listening. I owe you an apology, he said. I waited. I signed that agreement in 2012, he continued. I typed it myself. I remember doing it. His voice cracked. And then I let your mother convince me it didn't matter, that you wouldn't enforce it, that you'd just go along. He exhaled shakily. I shouldn't have done that. For the first time in my life, my father sounded small. Why, Dad? The question I'd been holding back for months finally came out. Why did you let her do this? There was a long pause. Because I'm a coward, Camila. The word hung in the air between us. Your mother is a lot, he continued quietly. She has strong opinions, strong reactions, and somewhere along the way, I learned it was easier to agree with her than to fight her, even when she was wrong. Even when you knew she was wrong? Yes. That's not just cowardice, Dad, I said softly. That's collaboration. He made a sound that might have been a sob. You're right, he whispered. I've spent 35 years choosing the easy path, And my daughters paid for it. What are you saying? I'm saying I'll make sure you get your money. I don't know how yet. Your mother is still fighting this, but I won't let it end with you walking away with nothing. I need more than promises. I know, he said. His voice steadied slightly. For once in my life, I'm going to do the right thing, even if it costs me. I wanted to believe him. I just didn't know if I could. October 26th. Daniel's office felt different from the closing room. Smaller, quieter, more final. My parents sat across from me with their attorney, Thomas Green. Valeria wasn't there. I'd requested that. This wasn't her signature on the contract. Thomas spoke first. My clients are prepared to propose a settlement. They will transfer $960,000 to Miss Morales from the proceeds of the sale, representing her 40% ownership as specified in the 2012 agreement. I looked at my mother. Her face was composed, controlled, like she had locked every emotion behind a door. In exchange, Thomas continued, Ms. Morales will sign a release waiving any future claims against the property or remaining proceeds. Daniel glanced at me. We had discussed this. My client accepts, he said. The transfer will be completed within 3 business days of closing, Thomas added. My father nodded once. My mother didn't move. There's one more thing, I said. Every head turned toward me. I want both of you to acknowledge here, in front of our attorneys, that this money was always mine, that the agreement was valid, and that what you attempted to do was wrong. My mother's jaw tightened. Camila, I need to hear it. The silence was thick. My father spoke first. You're right, he said quietly. It was yours. We were wrong. My mother stared down at the table. For a moment, I thought she would refuse. Fine, she said at last. It was yours. A beat. Are we done? It wasn't an apology, but it was the first acknowledgement I'd ever received. We're done, I said. And for the first time in 12 years, I believed it. After the meeting, my mother caught up with me in the hallway. Happy now? She asked, her voice low and sharp. You got your money. You humiliated us. You won. I stopped walking but didn't turn around at first. This was never about winning. Really? Because it feels like you were keeping score. Now I faced her. I kept a document, I said evenly. That's all. A document you and Dad signed. For 12 years I never brought it up. I never demanded interest. I never complained about the extra $60,000 I contributed for repairs and taxes. I trusted that when the time came, you would honor your word. And I didn't, she said, her voice trembling. I know. I don't need you to keep repeating it. I'm not trying to hurt you, I said gently. I'm trying to explain why I had to do this. I took a slow breath. For 34 years, I've been the daughter who gives, who doesn't complain, who makes everything easier for everyone else. And where did that get me? She didn't answer. I don't want to hate you, I continued, and I don't want to lose you, but I can't be your backup plan anymore. I can't be the safety net while Valeria takes the spotlight. If we're going to have any kind of relationship going forward, it has to be different. Different how? She asked quietly. Equal, with boundaries. I'll still be your daughter, but I won't be your emergency fund. Her eyes filled, real tears this time. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. I don't know how to be what you're asking. Then maybe it's time to learn, I said softly. I did. I walked away before she could answer. October 28th. The closing finally happened. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. Daniel represented me, and at 11:47 a.m., an email arrived. All documents signed, sale complete, proceeds distributed. October 31st, 3 days later. I was sitting at my desk at Whitmore and Lane when my phone buzzed with a banking alert. Deposit, $960,000. I stared at the number. $960,000. My grandmother's gift, finally honored. My investment, finally returned. My worth had finally been acknowledged. I called Naomi. "It's done," I told her. She didn't cheer. She didn't gasp. "How do you feel?" I sat with that question for a moment. Not as happy as I thought I'd be. Not victorious. Just relieved. Like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying finally came off. "That's closure," she said softly. "It's not fireworks. It's quiet." That night, I made a decision. I set aside $50,000 to create a scholarship in my grandmother's name, the Isabella Cruz Foundation for First-Generation College Women. She left me that money so I'd have a foundation under my feet. Now I could help build one for someone else. The next morning, I called the San Diego Foundation to begin the process. When the coordinator asked why I wanted to create the fund, I didn't hesitate. "My grandmother believed in me when no one else did," I said. "She wanted me to have a strong start. I want to pass that on." "That's beautiful," she replied. Maybe it was, or maybe it was simply right. Either way, it felt like something Grandma Isabella would have smiled at. January 2025. 3 months after the closing. My life didn't look dramatically different, but it felt different. I was still at Whitmore and Lane, but for the first time in 2 years, I asked for the raise I'd earned. They gave me a 15% increase and a performance bonus for client retention. It turns out when you stop accepting less than you deserve in one area of your life, you stop accepting it everywhere. I bought a condo in Little Italy, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a small balcony overlooking the harbor lights. It was mine. My name on the deed. My future. Most of the money went into practical decisions. Index funds, retirement accounts, an emergency reserve. Responsible, steady choices. The kind my grandmother would have approved of. I also started therapy with Dr. Elena Ramirez, who specializes in family dynamics and boundaries. Those sessions were hard. We unpacked 34 years of people-pleasing, of shrinking myself, of believing love meant sacrifice. The hardest part, I told her one afternoon, is realizing they weren't confused. They knew what they were doing. They just hoped I'd never push back. "And how does that make you feel?" "Angry, sad, free." I paused. "Mostly free." "You're grieving," she said gently. "Not just the relationship you wanted. You're grieving the version of yourself who believed giving more would fix everything. That version of me was naive. That version of you survived," she corrected. "Now you get to do something different." Different felt like a beginning. My family relationships didn't magically heal. They shifted. My mother and I speak once a month now. Short, careful conversations. She never offered a real apology, and I stopped waiting for one. But she also stopped asking for money, stopped comparing me to Valeria, stopped treating me like a resource. Maybe that's as much growth as she's capable of. My father tried harder. He wrote me a handwritten letter, 2 full pages, apologizing for every time he stayed silent. It wasn't polished, but it was honest. We had dinner once, just the 2 of us. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. I should have said it more. "You can start now," I told him. And he did. Valeria surprised me the most. In December, she texted, "I got a part-time job at a dental office, first real job in years." "That's great," I replied. And I meant it. A week later, bought a smaller house than I wanted. But it's mine. I used my own money. Is it stupid to feel proud? Not at all, I told her. She called me on Christmas Eve. We talked for nearly an hour. About her job, the kids, how hard it is to rebuild from scratch. "I think I was jealous of you," she admitted. "You always seemed so put together." "I wasn't," I said. "I was just better at hiding." Maybe we're more alike than I thought. Maybe we are. Tonight, I'm sitting in my condo as I tell you this story. It's a Tuesday evening. The harbor lights glow beyond the balcony. On my wall, in a simple black frame, hangs the 2012 agreement. 2 signatures. 1 promise. The paper that changed everything. People ask if it was worth it. The tension, the conflict, the months of strain. Would I do it again? Yes, every single time. Not just because of the $960,000, though I won't pretend that didn't matter, but because of what standing up taught me. That document didn't just protect my inheritance, it protected me. It proved my contributions mattered, that I deserved protection, even if I had to provide it myself. If you see yourself in this story, if you've been pressured to give up what was rightfully yours, hear this clearly, keep records, put important agreements in writing, especially with family. And most importantly, believe you are worth defending. I didn't win because of the money. I won because I chose myself. That's the real inheritance my grandmother left me. Not just financial security, but the certainty that I deserve space, I deserve boundaries, I deserve to be seen. And no one, not even family, gets to take that away, if not alone.